Larry King now, Emmy winner, writer, and actor Lena Waithe.
And the first time Aziz and I read together, it just felt like we had known each other all our lives.
What does Aziz like to work with?
Aziz is very laid back, actually, but he pays close attention to everything.
What was it like to win an Emmy?
I think it was a little out of body.
Did it change your career?
You know, it changed the way I think people look at me. I think there's a thing that happens when you win an award. There's an automatic trust switch that goes on. Where people go, oh, then we trust that you know what you're doing. Even though the day before that, you had the same amount of skills and knowledge. For us, it was about Chicagoans coming together and telling a story that feels human and feels honest.
What was it like to be at the helm of your own show?
A lot goes with it, man. You can't just be a writer, you gotta be a bit of a politician, you gotta be a manager, you gotta be a parent, you gotta be a therapist.
Plus, best compliment you ever got?
From my lovely fiancée that, you know, I'm a good partner.
What does she do?
She's an exec, actually. She's on the other side of the business. She's one of the good ones, though.
All next on Larry King Now. Welcome to Larry King Now. Our guest today is the Emmy-winning writer, producer, and actor Lena Waithe. The breakout star of Master of None, Lena made history earlier this year when she became the first black woman to win an Emmy for comedy writing for her work on that acclaimed Netflix series. Lena was a producer on Dear White People and the upcoming Netflix comedy Stepsisters, and she's the creator and executive producer of the new Showtime series, The Chi. It's centered on life in the South Side of Chicago, and it premieres January 7th. We'll talk about The Chi in a little bit. You had one acting credit before Master of None, right?
Yes.
How did you get that?
Allison Jones, who is a phenomenal casting director, and she called me in to come sit down with her, and I didn't know why. I didn't even know who she was, because I just didn't know casting directors, and she saw me and was aware of what I was doing, and she asked if I had any interest in acting, and I was like, not particularly. I hadn't thought about it. But she just said, let me bring you in for some stuff. And she did, and she brought me in for a few things, and I booked a small thing on The Comeback. And then when Aziz and Alan were casting Master of None, they asked her to send them interesting people. And by the grace of God, she thought of me and sent me to Aziz's house, and I sat down with him and Alan, and we just had a conversation, and next thing I knew, I was coming back to read with him. And the first time Aziz and I read together, it just felt like we had known each other all our lives.
Were you first a comic writer? Were you ever a stand-up?
No, never done stand-up comedy. I'm obsessed with stand-up comedians. I study them. I admire them a great deal. I don't have the balls to do what they do.
But you're a writer.
I'm a writer. I like to write funny characters and funny situations.
Who also acts.
Yeah. I'm a writer who acts now. Yeah.
Is it true that part in Master of None originally was supposed to be a straight white woman?
Well, yeah. Here's the thing. Aziz and Alan knew they wanted a woman in that group of friends. That's all they knew. And so I think they initially thought maybe she could be a love interest for Aziz's character and that kind of thing. But then they met me and thought, well, you're interesting as you being a queer woman, you being a woman of color. And I think they thought to themselves, well, let's lean more toward who she is. And to their credit, they went back and like rewrote the character and really made her sound and look a lot like me.
What does Aziz like to work with?
Aziz is very laid back, actually. He's very laid back, he's super chill, but he pays close attention to everything. And I think like most comics, you know, they just have a very unique way of looking at the world, and he does as well. So he's really fun, but I think the thing about him is he makes everything feel so relaxed that it doesn't even feel like work. But once you kind of put it out there, it looks like, oh, that's a really cool scene, or that's an interesting take on that subject.
The episode you wrote, you won an Emmy. Is that about your own self?
Absolutely. You know, it was
your coming out.
My coming out. And it's funny, I never thought I would want to write about that. I mean, it wasn't a traumatic experience. It was not easy, but I never thought it was that interesting. And so,
how old were you when you came out?
I was in my like early 20s. I was already living out here. It took me a while to come out to my mom. I was a little nervous about it. But yeah, when Alan asked me how I came out, I just started to tell them. And by the time I got back to my hotel, they were like, we think that's an episode. We think we want to focus on that. And I thought, okay. And then he's like, but you have to co-write it. He's like, because it's so specific to you. And I thought, I don't know if I want to do that. I said, because people already think I write on the show, even though I don't. And I'm really, you know, an actor for hire on the show, and I don't want to confuse people. But he said, he's like, either you co-write it or we're not doing it. And then I was like, okay, well, I definitely think we should do it. So he convinced me, and I co-wrote it, and it was the best decision I ever made.
What was it like to win an Emmy?
I think it was a little out of body, you know. And
surprising?
Well, here's the weird thing. I think there was a lot of love for the episode in the world and also in the community, because I could not go to an Emmy party / event without somebody coming up to me saying, you're gonna win, you're gonna win. and mind you, Cindy Shupak, who I'm a huge fan of, who wrote on Sex and the City and is now currently writing on a Showtime show called I'm Dying Up Here. I went to that premiere, and she came and she saw me, and she said, you're gonna win an Emmy for that episode. And that was like months before like anything had really happened. So it was a little like I felt the support of the industry and just the world. People were very excited about it.
Did it change your career?
You know, it changed the way I think people look at me. I think there's a thing that happens when you win an award. There's an automatic trust switch that goes on, where people go, oh, then we trust that you know what you're doing. Even though the day before that, you had the same amount of skills and knowledge that you do the day after you win an award. There's a thing where the industry sort of puts you on a list, and you become a part of a very exclusive club. And my club, I'm aware, is even more exclusive, because I'm aware that I was the first woman of color to ever win an Emmy for comedy writing. So I think there's this element of I have a place in history now, as well as I've left a stamp on the industry that can never be taken away.
Why did you refer to yourself as queer?
I think because I think it's more inclusive. And even though technically somebody can say, oh, well, you're a lesbian, but I think because I feel so connected to the queer community.
It's different.
Yeah, yeah. And I think the queer community is very, it runs the gamut. I mean, it's like lesbian, gay, bisexual, trans, intersex, asexual, non-binary. There's like so many different categories. And some people may think of like, oh, well, how many more categories can you have? And I say like, however many we need. Because I think that how people identify or how they choose not to identify is a world that I'm very proud to be a part of.
Hard or easy to write about yourself?
You know what? It's easier, I think, because no one knows that better than me. And I think there was this element where people sort of asked me, oh, was it difficult, or like trying to remember things? Like, no, it flowed out of me like water. Like you will never, coming out is something you never forget. Like that you remember where you were, you remember what you were eating.
Well, tell me, who did you come out to and where?
I came out, well, the big conversation for me was the one with my mom. And I think also because I came up in a single parent home, it wasn't like, oh, let me sit down with my mother and my father and the whole family.
Your father had left?
Yeah, you know, they divorced when I was 2. He kind of stopped coming around after I was 7. So and he passed away when I was 14. Oh. So there wasn't like, I didn't have that 2-parent like,
Mother didn't remarry?
No, she didn't. She's still not remarried. So
how was it like to come out to her?
It was, you know, not the most fun conversation. I think because she's a woman who was born in 1953. She was born into a segregated America. And I think she kind of came up during a time where to be a good black person was to be one that didn't ruffle feathers.
Where was she born?
She was born in Chicago. But my grandmother was from Arkansas. She was a part of that sort of great migration of that thing of moving to the north.
So you had to think about how you were going to handle it, right?
Yeah, and a big part of it was to be in a public place, which is, again, we were in a diner, which we kind of recreated on the show. I think me being wanting to do it in a public place meant that she couldn't like physically grab me or do something that she would regret. But you know, but I knew she would be emotional, which she was. She was crying, she was upset, and I think she was just worried. I think there's an element of wanting your child to have the easiest life possible.
How old were you when you did this?
I think I was about, I had graduated in 06, so I was about like 21, 22.
Weren't we coming of age then?
I mean, the world can do what it wants, but a black mother, you know, who is a little conservative, you know, and I think, again, she came up during a time where there was this ideal way that you think of a successful life. And I think it means to be married, to have a house, to have maybe 2-car garage if you're lucky.
You know, they did a study years ago where they said the black mother is the strongest woman in American society.
I would agree with that 100%.
Our guest is the versatile Lena Waithe. We're discussing her new series, The Shy. We'll do that after the break. We'll be right back. We're back with Lena Waithe, new series, The Shy, about life on the south side of Chicago. Premieres January 7th. Where are you from? Evergreen Park? Where?
No, I'm from the South Side, a place actually called Chatham, which is funny enough where Chance is from as well. It's like this little pocket. It's like a little neighborhood.
Chance the Rapper?
Yeah, Chance the Rapper.
My son's name is Chance.
Oh, it's a good name.
Great name, ain't it?
So good.
Chance King.
It's strong.
Chance the Rapper.
It sounds like a king.
Okay, you're creator and executive producer of The Shy, Shy meaning Chicago,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
How did this come about?
Well, I was in my apartment, living in the Valley at the time, about a couple years ago, about 2015, and I was watching a news story about Chicago, and the people that were telling the story were not from Chicago, had not lived there, and I don't think they were being disrespectful of the city. The reporting was obviously very foreign. They didn't understand the people that lived there. They were reporting on something they should be reporting on, which was the gun violence that had sort of really gotten out of control. But looking at the subjects that they were talking to, I felt like I knew them. I felt like I understood them, and I just kind of wanted to tell their story. And even though I had never written a drama before, I'd only written comedies, I thought like, well, that's a TV show. There's a story in this. And so I just started mapping out the character, storylines and where the characters would be from, what their names were, and I gave them names of people I grew up with, names of my family members. No, not in it at all. And
it's serious.
It's a serious show about, life on the south side of Chicago.
Do we have misconceptions about the South? People say South Side of Chicago, they think about shootings.
They do, and I'm not.
Is that fair or unfair?
Well, look, I think it's a part of our reality. I think it's something that's actually happening in that city. I don't ever mean to think of Chicago as a perfect place, but I think it's a beautiful place, and I think it's a place that doesn't only have shootings and gang violence, but also has. It's a great city, and I think it has people that are going to church and going to work and raising their kids, and I think that's an element that no one had ever really shined a light on, and that's something I really wanted to do. I really wanted to show the humanity of the city, as well as the things that come along with living there, which is violence is going to touch your life at some point. You're going to be aware of it, and that was really important to show the balance. I feel like it was sort of an imbalance of what the stories that were coming out of the city.
What was it like to be at the helm of your own show?
A lot goes with it, man. You can't just be a writer. You got to be a bit of a politician. You got to be a manager. You got to be a parent. You got to be a therapist. There's a lot of things that happen, and you also got to be a team player. Common is an executive producer as well, and he really took to the script very early on and said, I want to be involved, and having him as my partner has been really helpful. Chance has also been super supportive. A lot of his music, Chance the Rapper, a lot of his music is in the show because he's been gracious enough to lend it. And I think for us, it was about Chicagoans coming together and telling a story that feels human and feels honest.
Someone playing you?
No.
No? You're not a character?
No, there's a piece of me in every character, though. The character of Brandon, who has a desire to be a chef and has, issues with his mother and has a sibling and is in a relationship. Like, there's a lot of me in him, and with, the character of Kevin, who's just a kid who's sort of growing up a little bit too fast and saying a little bit more than he should. There's a lot of me in that character as well. So there's a piece of me in all of the characters, I think, in order for me to be able to write them as best I can.
You lost your father at 14. He had already divorced your mother, right?
Yeah. And
what was your childhood like?
My childhood, honestly, was quite idyllic. I always say we didn't have everything we wanted, but we never wanted for anything. And I think that came from my mom working 2 jobs. We lived in my grandmother's house, so I sort of did come from a 2-parent home. We just had one of those parents have to be my mom's mother. But neighbors, we literally grew up in the house that my mom grew up in. So the kids that we would play with were the children of, people that my mom grew up with. So it really, and also too, like, it was a neighborhood that was predominantly African-American, but it didn't start out that way. Like, they really integrated that neighborhood, and then the neighborhood became all black.
Did you go to downtown Chicago a lot, Michigan Avenue? Did you go to all the places that people know? Not
a ton as a kid, but every now and then for special occasions, we would kind of venture out and go to cool restaurants or go see a play and go see theater, which was really amazing, which I took to very early. I was always an artistic kid, and I'm grateful that my mom leaned into that and was supportive of it.
Brothers and sisters?
I have an older sister, yeah.
What does she do?
She works, in the restaurant industry, and she, I think, is very, surprised at my career choice, because I don't come from a showbiz family.
Coming up, Lena on the power of otherness and what people get wrong about her. Stay with us. We're back with Lena Waithe. In your Emmy acceptance speech, you said, "The things that make us different, those are our superpowers." Every day when you walk out the door and put on your imaginary cape and go out there and conquer the world, because the world would not be as beautiful as it is if we weren't in it. You wrote that, I would assume.
I didn't write it, no. I wish I had, but it came to me when I was standing there. And that's what I really wanted to do. I really wanted to speak from the heart. And I'm not a big believer in pulling out a piece of paper up on stage. I don't, I completely understand why people do it, because you can get frazzled up there. Aziz was actually pushing me to write something down, but I just kind of was like, I'm gonna thank the people I have to thank, and then I wanna say something from the heart, and that's what came out.
You think being a queer black woman is a barrier to your success? No, I think to me, I want to use those things that somebody might use against me as a ladder to climb even higher, because I think it gives me an advantage, because I think the world in which we've been watching television for a long time has come from, I think, straight white men. Even stories about, black life. I mean, I love Norman Lear, but, he was behind Good Times. And I don't know how many black writers were on that show, and I love Good Times. But I think to me, the people like Donald Glover and Justin Simien and Issa Rae and myself, having shows and them coming from our point of view, I think helps audiences that look like us really be able to connect to the characters. Are you surprised at how so apparently fast the LGBTQ community is suddenly accepted?
Yeah, I mean,
compared to the black community, which took 200 years.
Yeah, and
it still hasn't resolved.
Exactly, and I think the people from part of the LGBTQIA community might say we still have a long ways to go. I think we're still in the midst of a movement.
From this side of the ledger, it looks fast to me.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely do it, but I think that's what happens when there's unity in the community. When we all come together and decide that we will demand to be treated like equals.
We play a little game of If You Only Knew. You do not have to answer them. It is not a court. Who was your childhood celebrity crush?
I would say Jasmine Guy on A Different World. She played Whitley Gilbert. She's still beautiful.
Secret talent?
Secret talent? I'm really good at laundry.
You are?
I'm really good at it.
Tide?
Yeah.
Guilty pleasure?
It's tough. Like I want to throw a TV show out there, but I think that sometimes is insulting to the TV show, so I won't say that. Guilty pleasure, I'll say like eating really bad food. Like
you like bad food?
I like fast food. I like chips. I like anything.
You like McDonald's?
You know what? McDonald's kind of like messes up my stomach a little bit too much now, so that I can't do. But I'll do In-N-Out. I'll do Fat Burger.
In-N-Out.
In-N-Out is like classic. Good.
Weirdest job you ever had?
One time I actually worked in a factory for a hot second in Chicago. Like
making
really,
what?
I think they were like car parts or something.
What did you do?
I was just on the line, and it was literally me trying to be independent and trying to get some money.
You didn't know what you were making?
I didn't even know what I was making, and I was not good at it. But I did it for like a few weeks, and I was
so
like,
you might put together a lemon car.
Maybe. I'm to blame.
Who would you trade places with for a day?
Oprah Winfrey, just because I think she has a pretty good life.
Show you'd most like to guest star on?
Oh, man. Well, I already guest starred on Dear White People season 2, so I can't say that. But I'll say Atlanta. I want to get on there. Something
you wish you were better at?
I wish I was better about reading more books. I'm reading a book now. I'm reading Jennifer Lewis's book called The Mother of Black Hollywood, but I wish I was made more time for myself to read books.
What never fails to make you laugh?
Oh my gosh. Lisa Kudrow on The Comeback.
Last time you were starstruck?
Every time I see Shonda, I'm always a little man, she's a big deal.
Best compliment you ever got?
From my lovely fiancée that, I'm a good partner.
What does she do?
She's an exec, actually. She's on the other side of the business. She's one of the good ones, though.
Strangest fan encounter?
You know what? Somebody came up to me recently at a thing and just shook my hand and said, "You're an icon," and walked away. And I said,
That had to make you feel good.
It was a little heavy, though. I was like, I don't know about that. Not yet. I think I'm working toward it, but I appreciate the compliment.
What's something people get wrong about you?
You know, that I think I'm too big for my britches.
They think so?
I think people may think that because I've won an award, and I think I try to remind people that I haven't changed at all. Like, that stuff doesn't move me.
What should we be paying more attention to?
Police brutality, and the fact that people of color are treated differently in our court system, and also that the LGBTQIA youth still have an issue with homelessness, and they are still put out of their homes and have nowhere to go.
People
Absolutely.
throw people out of their house?
Absolutely, and a lot of them are people of color. And I think that's something that's very near and dear to my heart. My partner and I, do a lot of work with the LGBTQ Center here in Los Angeles, but it's a problem, and I think people need to be more aware of it.
Parents throw them out?
Yeah, absolutely. Especially, I think, in the trans community, things like that. I think there's not always as much support as there could be. And so I think it's just something people should be paying closer attention to.
What's something you long believed to be true but realized wasn't?
That relationships are, champagne and Marvin Gaye. It's not true. It requires just as much work as you put into your professional life.
Tell me something people don't know about you.
That I'm a real student of television. And that, like, last night, like, I was watching an episode of the Mary Tyler Moore Show, just studying it, watching it, like, listening to Maude, watching Rhoda, and I don't just watch, TV shows of today, but I'm always studying the shows that came before us.
And you learn from what works, right?
Absolutely. And also, too, it's like those things, like my fiancé and I were chuckling at a joke, that Rhoda said on the Mary Tyler Moore Show now. And I think that's the mission. The mission is to make television that's timeless and will be good, not just today, but 20 years from now.
Seinfeld holds up.
Seinfeld holds up, All in the Family still holds up. And The Jeffersons is really great. Like, so I'm always studying.
Even The Honeymooners.
Oh, my gosh. I mean, it's the blueprint.
Jackie was my great friend.
Oh, my God. I mean, that's an icon.
Lena will answer your social media questions in our final segment. Plus, we're discussing her work in Ready Player One from a little-known director, Steven Spielberg, who might make it.
Maybe.
More after this. We're back with Lena Waithe. The Shy will premiere on January 7th on Showtime. She is the creator and executive producer. Some social media questions. Mimsy Yamaguchi. The casting of the Thanksgiving episode was perfect. Did you and Aziz give any input in hiring the child actors?
We did. We handpicked our younger versions of ourselves. And it was the most fun I've ever had, because those kids were great. Well, they ranged from ages. There was like a 5-year-olds, and there were like 12-year-olds, and there were like 16-year-olds.
How can a 5-year-old be a professional?
I mean, the one we chose was pretty great.
At Caring Heart for All, at what point in your career have you felt most successful?
I think I think people, the answer they would assume would be the Emmy. I mean, that was obviously a highlight. But I think getting The Shy greenlit the series was like one of my biggest accomplishments. It's like the first show I've ever sold, and so that was a big deal. Alan
Mangelson asks, are there writers or specific stories that inspired you to pursue writing? Was there a narrative you connected with?
I think it was more watching The Cosby Show in a different world really just sort of made me go, whatever that is, I want to be a part of it. So those writers really had a huge influence on me, especially in the way they depicted Black life, because it was very familial, and then obviously it was on a fictitious, HBCU, and I just really was blown away by it. Was The Cosby Show realistic to you? Here's the deal, it did not mirror my life, but that's how we behaved. My sister and I were very respectful of our mother and our grandmother, and those are the kind of kids we were. We were very smart. We were very connected as a family. So even though did we have the kind of money, did we have all that kind of stuff? No. But the spirit in which those characters related to each other felt very similar to our house.
So the Cosby fall must have been painful to you.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. Because I wouldn't be sitting here were it not for that show and then obviously the spinoff of Different World.
Reese Chenault wants to know, what advice, if any, did Angela Bassett give you?
You know, she's not like big on like giving actual words of advice. She's a person that I think really leads by example. And I think the thing that she did that I witnessed was she just came to work every day as if it was her first job. Like, she was so eager to be there and so passionate. And the thing is, she's an icon. She could come and like, half-ass it and not really, give us 120%. But she acted as if it was the last time she would be working. She's like, this is the last thing I ever do. Let me make sure it's phenomenal.
Chico Pasco, what is your grandest aspiration? Something you look upon far into the future and see yourself doing and doing well.
Oh man, I think having a production company that's synonymous with great storytelling and making great movies and great television, and also really expanding my mentorship. I mentor a lot of young writers and producers, and my mission is to have an organization where anybody that wants to be in this business, whether you're a writer, a producer, director, where we have a place where you can come and we can make sure you know your craft very well and make sure that you have opportunities on my projects and on other projects that I'm aware of as well.
You're in the highly anticipated film Ready Player One, Steven Spielberg.
Yeah.
What is that about?
That's actually a good question. I think it's about how we are looking to escape our reality.
You think it's about? You don't know what it's about?
I mean, well, here's the thing. There's a lot of themes there. It's based on a very thick book. So this is my interpretation of it, because I think a lot of people walk out of the theater and say different things about what it's about.
Who do you play?
I can't say. That's the secret. But I'm happy to be in it.
Okay, now tell me something. Why would people promote a movie, Steven Spielberg directed it,
Yeah.
and people coming on say, I can't talk about it?
Well, I think because my character is a bit of a reveal. And so I think that's why Steven said, like, you can say you're in it. You can say if you had a good time making it, but just don't say who you play.
Can you tell me what the title means?
Well, yes, because it's sort of a bit of a video game, and most video games, I believe, it really asks you. It says ready, and then more often
player
than not,
one, you go.
One. Yeah, so it's like ready, okay, player one, because it's really about this sort of like adventure we go on, and the adventure is very much within this sort of like.
Is it set in the future?
It is, yeah.
What's he like to work for?
Steven is obviously a king. I mean, he's the cream of his crop. I mean, he knows everything. You can literally bring up any subject to him and he can talk to you about it for 45 minutes. But the thing I think about him is that he's a giant that doesn't make you feel small. That's what I think of him. Because when he walks onto a set, he's very aware that he changed the energy in the room, but he does everything he can to diffuse that and to make sure everybody feels like you're an equal.
I always enjoy being around him.
He's the most joyful person.
Did you learn a lot from him?
I did, and I think the biggest thing I learned, because also too was his children came to visit set, his wife was on set a ton, I met his father came to set. Yeah. The thing I learned the most is that who he is as a person is, I think, it's equal to his talent. Like, he's such a kind man, and he really does care about how we feel on the set. He wants to make sure everyone feels like they are playing an important role.
How does he handle when he wants you to change something? How does he deal with that? I've been in a lot of movies as bit parts. I always play myself. And all directors are different.
Yeah.
And some will say, that was great, but let's try one more. How does Steven handle when he wants you to, he likes it, but he wants you to change something?
He's pretty direct. Like, I mean, he'll tell you. He'll say exactly what he wants. And I think that's something I really appreciate. He never will BS you.
He doesn't equivocate.
No, I mean, I think there's some times where he'll make sure, we feel confident. So he'll never say, like, sometimes he'll do this thing where I think he'll kind of say, no, I think the crew messed up that take. Let's go again. Where it's like, so it's never your fault. He always does a thing where you don't ever feel bad for messing it up.
Where did you shoot?
We shot in London. We were in London for 4 months, yeah. It was phenomenal.
Honor meeting you.
Such a lovely joy meeting you.
Thanks to my guest, Lena Waithe. The Shy premieres January 7th on Showtime. You can always find me on Twitter at King's Things. See you next time.